Hi, everybody. Joel Ludlow, Evolution Martial Arts. I am joined by Ian. Say hi to Ian.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
We are we're going to be doing this cool podcast, and Ian and I really have great conversations a lot. And he said, "Well, why don't we just put it in a podcast and record it and let everybody else hear our cool thoughts?" And I was like, "Well, that seems like a good idea." So first things first, who the heck are we? Um, let's go with the short list, and then we'll get into a little bit longer versions of it, and then we will cover a couple of other things of like cultivation and a cool, fun story to tell you why we named the podcast what we did. Uh, so my name is Joel Ludlow. I am a full instructor in the martial art of Jeet Kune Do. I'm also a full instructor slash fifth degree black belt in the martial art of Duo Ji Kung Fu. Uh, I have also trained in a crapload of other things and am recognized as a black belt by several other people, even though I may not officially have rank underneath them. I do have official rank under several other people. I've trained in several sport arts and combative arts, as well as having, I don't know, 6, 7 years of experience working security, super bouncer, and running security teams in Hollywood. Yeah, there you go. That's the short version, I guess. Ian, what about for you? What's your short version?
Well, I've been under you for over a decade. Before I started training with you, I was into and still am into martial arts tricking, and I stepped out and did Circus Olay, Marvel Universe Live, another show. But I kind of tried to find a mix of how everything works together and find the commonalities, which I think is why you and I have such good talks together. But I guess if formalities are a thing outside of my career path, I am an instructor under you for both the Jeet Kune Do and the Doji Kung Fu.
I think one of the things, as we get into a little bit broader versions of this, Ian and I have a lot of experience moving and working with artists. Ian does a lot with music. I have worked with a lot of musicians. I've worked with a lot of athletes. I've worked with a lot of martial artists. I've worked with a lot of fighters, and a lot of just people who express themselves. And it's really cool. Like, we geek out. Like, that's one of the big things on there. If you like movement, if you like martial arts, if you like music, then we're probably going to be the podcast for you, because honestly, we just geek out and talk about things that are relevant for today, but maybe come from history, but also are just an amalgamation of everything, and how they all just flow from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, and really just explore it, whether it's superficial and present day or really deep diving into the philosophical and metaphysical or the biomechanical aspects of something. Ian and I really bring two kind of quirky, unique perspectives into looking at things. And honestly, we just like talking about it, right?
I think one of the biggest things that even Sifu Ed said it in one of his videos on YouTube when he was talking about describing Jeet Kune Do, it was to learn to express yourself as honestly as possible. And there's more to that, but I kind of wanted to touch on that because what we have done and what we constantly do is we don't just look at it from the terms of martial arts. We look at these other things, swimming, flipping, cartwheels, all of that, and look at, okay, well, what is the essence of how this works? How can we improve on it? What is the most efficient way that we can express it? And then what is the artistic view of this in which to make it whatever context it's supposed to be expressed in? And that's where I find the value with what we discuss.
And I'll give you a couple of bullet point topics that often come up for us. and things that are questions and problems and just things that we like to explore. One, I look at martial arts on a very high level. Two, I look at self-defense situations. Three, reviewing like other martial artists moving, whether it's in this venue or that venue. I look at the practicality of it in the given circumstances. But Ian has also given me a ton of things of like, hey, I was working with so and so on this move in tricking. Here's the video. What do you think? And then we start going back and forth. And sometimes I'm like, well, what do you about this? And he's like, well, that doesn't apply here. And I'm like, okay, well, what about that? He's like, oh, wait a minute. Let me go back and talk to so and so. But wait a minute. No, they said this. And there's just this back and forth of not right or wrong, but just back and forth of questioning in what Ian was talking about, seeking information. We're just looking. We're just exploring this stuff. I've worked with athletes who are doing discus and shot put. I've worked with dancers. I've worked with actors who are selling a story. Ian has done that when he was working with Marvel and coming through there. That's actually a really funny story because Ian, really fantastic tricker, and it's coming through. He's like, Sifu, look, I can do. He's on tour, and Ian, what was the thing you had to do? You had to be able to do it in full costume before.
Yeah,
they would let you do it.
So whenever you, I can't remember what the name is called, but you basically go through like a pre-rehearsal, like called like oh my God, what is it called? But you basically do a check or like an approval of being able to do the show before you actually get out and go do it. But I was the understudy for Iron Fist. Shout out to Omar Zaki. He is in lots of stunts now and all that, doing lots of crazy things, and he taught me a lot. But I was the understudy for him, and when I put the suit on, it was like more than like 20 pounds, I felt. Maybe not 20 pounds, but it was super heavy compared to what I was used to. We had animatronics built in, we had lights, and then there was the skin suit, which was very, very tight for one, and then we had to put on the muscles, and then we had to put on the heavy clothing, and then we had trouble like getting shoes that fit me, and so my shoe came off during the rehearsal thing, and it was a nightmare. But I remember that you and I were having a conversation, and I was like, hey, why don't we, or like, what can I do about this? Because I'm having a hard time, because I was physically active, like I was physically fit.
And Ian had sent me a video. He's like, here's what I do. And he's like flying through the air. And I was like, okay, well, you can do everything. He goes, well, yeah, I can do everything until I put the costume on. And I said, okay, well, just put on a weight vest. Because Ian said, well, we have like fitness places every place that we go to. I said, well, do you have a weight vest? He goes, yeah. I said, well, put on a weight vest, walk around for half an hour, and then take it off and do it, because it'll be there. Your body will make all those micro adjustments to being heavier, and then you'll do it. And you actually, I think I recommended something like way longer, like an hour, and you did it for way less, and then went through and then like, yep, totally nailed it.
Yeah, about 20 minutes. I think that like, and this might be a conversation for another day, but just something that's really fascinating is your body and your mind's like perceived capacity for what you can output versus what you actually can really do. And this is actually a very common thing that happens within tricking and people committing to tricks like a backflip or something, because like physically a backflip is not difficult, but you don't know how much you actually have to output in order to be able to do like what we would call a full send, right? It doesn't, because like our conception of an output of a power level just is not there yet. So that's part of like that development, part of that cultivation. And even for me, who has learned to do backflips and has learned to do all these things, the context changed and I had to relearn how to do that.
And this is a great example of conversations that we have all the time and what we want to share with all of you. So we have a ton of experience. We have a lot of ongoing, and I think for both of us, one of the big things for us is, and I hope for all of you listening, is that we're still students. That's my syllabus, by the way.
Students.
we are always looking to improve ourselves, and we're always asking the question. We're not looking for the answer, we're looking for another question. Here's a question, Ian has a question, I'm like, I don't know the answer, let's figure it out together, let's like explore, and we just go back and forth with a lot of stuff. And that's what we want to share with you, is that back and forth with all we're doing. And I guess that goes into sort of the meat and potatoes of this channel, is cultivation. And I was talking about this in a class I was teaching just recently. The idea of cultivating athletic capacity. So when you do drills or techniques or exercises in your classes, whether you're doing martial arts or you're doing tricking or whatever, you're cultivating an athletic capacity to perform in a whatever it is, whether it's I'm trying to run or swim or throw a ball or punch or kick or flip, whatever that is, you're cultivating an athletic capacity. And the drills, and in martial arts, the techniques that we often look at, a jab or a hook kick or a back fist, whatever, those aren't really what you're trying to do. Those are just beginning points for us to explore. And that's what we get into. And I got to tell you, folks, we jump off into weird stuff too. Like, it's not just movement. We'll go off into some esoterical, crazy stuff. But I think we should get into drink your tea.
Drink your tea. Merch coming soon.
Merch coming soon. A t-shirt available. Will be. So Ian and I we both have sort of backgrounds that have conflict. We've been challenged and tested as martial artists, and we were supporting two martial artists, two other students that were training with Ian that didn't have that. And they wanted to challenge themselves, which is a very common thing in the martial arts world, to go do a tournament or to do a kickboxing match or a judo match or a Brazilian jiu-jitsu match or a cage fight, some sort of amateur match to challenge your skills against somebody else in a set dynamic. And we did that with two other guys, and we were really supportive of them. Really two great guys, Robert and Steven. And we go to do weigh-ins, and the two guys, Robert and Steven, they were really hyper focused on their fights. So Ian and I are like cutting jokes back and forth as we're driving them out to the weigh-ins. We're just trying to keep things light and really keep them from getting into the negative thought zone of pre-fight, and just trying to get them to relax.
It's a lot of pressure, you know, like it's, especially if you've never done it before, it's anxiety inducing for sure.
And I got to tell you, I actually stepped into, I've had a lot of situations happen to me, and I stepped into the octagon or whatever.
Yeah. While they were building it.
And I was like, ooh, this is interesting. Like, this is a little bit intimidating. And if you have another person you don't know it's on the other side, that's a big deal. So it is a legit challenge for a lot of people to do. You might also do a marathon. You might try to do a triathlon or some other race, or I'm going to climb a mountain. There's a lot of things that people do. Fights happen to be a lot of them. I'm going to do a boxing match. I'm going to do a kickboxing match. I'm going to do a grappling match, what have you. Those are ways to test yourself and to overcome your fears and anxieties as an individual. And these two people were doing it for super fantastic, super great. So we go to weigh-ins. And Ian is not a huge guy. Ian's, and probably, I actually got to say, you're a bit more buff now than you were then. You've worked out quite a bit and added probably 10, 15, 20 pounds of muscle mass to yourself. Yeah, I know you're thinking about it, but this was like before you moved to Vegas. So yeah, this is before all that.
I think I was 140.
In the process of gaining.
Yeah, I think I was 140, and by the time I was in shows, I was, well, actually, No, I was building. I was building to go to Vegas because this was before we
Uh-huh.
got. This was when we went for
It was.
our
You
high.
were building to go to Vegas.
Yeah, this is when we went for our high brown test, and then also our instructorship for Jeet Kune Do.
I don't think you were. I don't think you were up. You maybe 150,
Yeah, perhaps. But I was.
and you're gotten bigger afterwards.
But when you were training us, like we were training 5, 6 days a week, 6 days a week, because you were trying to get
Yep.
us ready to step out to go to move to Canada before we took over the school.
Yeah.
So like we were probably training 40 hours a week.
We'll put Ian at 150 pounds tops.
Yeah, I'm still
Now,
not a
we're
big
in
guy.
Room, we're in a room with guys who are all in doing these cage matches, and there's a whole bunch, all weight classes in there. So we're gonna get to the funny one in the second one, but we start going into all these people, and most of them are all bigger than you. And at one point, I look across the table and I'm like, you know, everybody in this room thinks they're going to win, and half of them are wrong. And then Ian looks over at this guy who was fighting heavyweight. And we're in Western Oklahoma with a whole bunch of rednecks.
Let me take over for a second. Let me just hold on a second, because you're not telling the best parts of the story. So, okay, look. So, I'm not a fan of Oklahoma. I've lived there way too long. It's kind of ironic that Sifu Joel and I met in Oklahoma because we both spent a lot of time in LA.
Yep.
I grew up in LA, and then you went out there for UCLA, and that's where you got all of your training at. So there,
Yep.
lo and behold. But so we're there, and
I
we're
was
in.
14 years in LA.
Yeah, I think I was too. 10 at least. So,
I may have been in LA longer than you.
well, I went back though several times.
All right.
Yeah. So,
All right, fair enough.
but so anyways, I'm over here bitching about like, man, I hate this place. Fucking backwoods Oklahoma. We're over here doing weigh-ins at a diner, just like mouthing off, and Sifu Joe
I'm
looks
like,
at me.
Shut up and drink your tea.
He
You're
looked-
surrounded
no.
by all these giant rednecks.
You were
Like,
so much more
I'm
concise.
skilled. I'm skilled. Like, drinking sweet tea in Oklahoma is a thing. You're in
That
the
is
South.
the thing.
Sweet tea. Like,
Yeah.
sweet tea. So he's drinking his tea. And I'm like, just shut up and drink your tea.
You didn't even say
Just drink
that.
your
You looked at me with a side eye, and you had a smirk on your face, like you were trying to be professional, and then you said, "Drink your tea." And so I gave you eye
Because
contact.
I didn't want to join you because I wanted to be as smart ass as you did, but I knew that the two of us would just like escalate the situation, and then
It would have been
shit
fine.
would have gone south.
It would have been fine. We could have
And
left.
I would have had to explain this to my my family, so that would have been difficult.
Anyways, you were looking at me. You say, "Drink your tea." I give you direct eye contact, and then I look at my tea and I take a sip, like. So
Yep.
right after that, we get up and we're walking, and there's like this like bootleg buffet thing or whatever, and I'm quiet and you're talking, and I think that's when you drop that line about everybody thinks they're gonna win, and the next thing you know, this fucking 400-pound guy walks in and stumbles in, and it catches Sifu Joel's eye from the right, and mid-sentence, whatever he was saying, he's like, something something. So what the fuck, are you fucking kidding me? This guy is gonna fight? And I look at Sifu Joel and we make eye contact, and I say, "Sifu Joel, drink your tea." And he looks at me and gives eye
Yeah.
contact and then grabs his mug and takes a sip.
This guy was 400 pounds. They weighed him. He was like 413.
Yeah.
And I like that's a big dude.
Yeah.
I don't think he won this fight though.
He didn't. He got tired, and not to knock the guy or anything, but at the same time, it's like he was fighting somebody that was like close to my size, I think.
No, he was fighting somebody who was like he might have looked like your size, but the guy was like 250.
Well, I mean, still 250. Like when we say this guy was 400 pounds, like he was a very large man.
We're not
exaggerating.
We're not exaggerating. So it's not like, oh, they're exaggerating 400 pounds. No, he actually weighed in at like 413 pounds. and I'm not going to be exact on the number, but it was 400 and something.
400 plus.
So he was a very large person who was not trim. You know, his BMI was a little bit high, we'll say.
Yeah.
But he was I don't care who you are, 400 pounds is a very, like I'm 200 pounds. I'm a little over 200 pounds. He was double my size, and I am not necessarily what I would call a little guy.
It's a lot of weight to move.
I would never call me a small person. I've been next to people who've made me feel small, but they are big people. This guy was big. So the whole drink your tea came with like, as a nice way to say, shut up, don't say anything.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to get in trouble, which is kind of this channel. We might get in trouble for some of the things we say, because honestly, we have opinions and we're happy to voice them and back them up. And there are a lot of people out there who are propagating ideas or things, I guess, to make it very general, things that are just asinine and stupid. And we may drink our tea and we may not. So we'll see.
I think one of the big things that, at least part of why I wanted us to do this, because I came to Seafood Joe and I was like, yo, we should do a podcast, was that like I have an issue personally, and I'm speaking for myself, about how difficult it is to have a conversation about martial arts, especially on like the YouTube platform or with other people that have other training. Generally speaking, if it's in person, it's a much different interaction. But when it comes into the online world, you've got guys that
There's two reasons for that again.
I know, but hold on. But you've got these guys that are, you know, the keyboard warriors that are behind, you know, technology and can say whatever the fuck they want anonymously. And then you have the other people that are perpetuating like, oh, this is going to work in a fight. Oh, this is going to do that. And when we talk about cultivation, first of all, teaching people things that might be unsafe is a whole different conversation. But we're more so trying to look at things for the aspect of, okay, we're training, we're cultivating. What is it that you're doing? And we're hoping that you can utilize this to go into watching these videos, because I'm sure that if you're watching this, you most likely watch YouTube videos, which we have, you know, obviously the channel. Feel free to check out our stuff. But we're here to cultivate. We're here to improve. And the likelihood of any of us actually getting into a real fight is much smaller these days. And so what are we getting out of martial arts? What is it that we are trying to find value in? And the fundamental principle of that, if you're not doing it for, you know, what is it? For discipline and whatever, and physical development, is to cultivate a skill. And so that applies to such a wider range of anything that you're trying to work on, whether it be martial arts or movement or stuff in general. But that's the approach that we try to take with these things. And when people are talking about punching a certain way or whatever, we're not even necessarily looking at, oh, that won't work in a fight, but it's like a clear lack of understanding of what it is that they're cultivating. It shows that they don't understand, you know, they might use flashy words. Oh, the biophysics. Oh, the, you know, this and that, biomechanics, whatever. But
we're about to get into some drink your tea stuff.
Yeah. So you get what I'm saying, though. We're trying to more so say, hey, let's look at this honestly. And even for us, we go back. Actually, I talk to Seafood Joe all the time about sending him footage and stuff. And a lot of times I delete it because I'm like, you know what, I could do better.
Yeah. And we don't have the answers. Let's be clear on that. We don't have the answers. We are just exploring the questions. And that, I think, is really, really important. A couple of things on what Ian was talking about, just to take it a little bit further. Yes, for a lot of the people that we're going to talk to, if, you know, online, people are going to say what have you. And here's the thing. They're not going to have that same conversation in person for two big reasons. Number one, I'll whoop their fucking asses. Like, straight up. Like, I'm not even kidding with this shit. Like, you're going to talk shit. Like, I'm 6'1", 205. I will fucking beat your ass. Like, straight up. I came and cultivated in that world of people, like, you won't do it. The keyboard warriors will get their asses beat. Now, here's the other part of that. The people who are actually skilled in martial artists, I don't have a problem with, because they're not spouting off. We figure each other out very quickly. I have been really lucky to be around a lot of very skilled people from a lot of walks of life, not just martial arts, but also military and law enforcement. You know what? I find they're all very respectful, and they're happy to share their experience and their knowledge, but they're also very respectful of you and your experience and your knowledge, and they're not spouting bullshit. And every one of us will call bullshit out. I have yet to be in a situation, I'm 50 years old, I have yet to be in a situation in my 35 plus or minus years, holy shit, years of martial arts training in various levels and my interactions with people, I have yet to find somebody who was skilled who I couldn't like work it out with. Like we were usually on the same side. Almost 99.9% of the time, me and another skilled martial artist, I'm talking like legitimately skilled people, we're on the same page. We're not trying to I'm not trying to let my ego push you around. You're not trying to let your ego push me around. We're like, hey, we got this. You got skill, I've got skill. We're not trying to go toe to toe because we legitimately understand, if shit goes south, it's going to be bad. And that's a real thing. And if you talk to a real martial artist, somebody with real skill, whatever their walk of choice is, they're going to tell you some version of the same thing. That if it goes down, it's going to get real and it's going to be bad. Someone's going to get hurt. You know what? I've got kids. I want to go home to my kids. They're far more important than somebody over a parking spot or a bar stool or some stupid shit like that. So that whole challenging, because I know some flippity floppity keyboard tickety tockety shit. You know what? Those people, they step in a room, they get really quiet and scurry off to the corners. And then they usually run off to themselves. I know, drink your tea, but that's why we have the drink your tea kind of motto in here.
And we could
not really drinking tea right now.
And we could wrap up with this, but consider that, like, and I don't think that this is an assumption, but just based off of my experience of growing up and where I did and whatnot, but a lot of the keyboard warriors that say that kind of stuff to us, or spread that kind of information or whatever, like a lot of those guys like have this like preconceived fantasy about how a fight is supposed to go. And first of all, like street violence or something, or street fights or whatever, when that happens to people, they usually don't go to YouTube to learn. They either get involved with something, some kind of establishment, whether it be ethical or not, and they go and figure that shit out pretty quickly. Now, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one, Ian. The fantasy. Yeah. They have a fantasy about what's going to happen because they watched a movie, but the reality is, whether you've trained or you grew up on the streets and you went to the school of hard knocks, and I know a lot of people who did. I'm going to tell you what, I have worked in security. I've been around people who maybe questionable backgrounds. They were polite because they didn't want shit, because if it went sideways, things were going to escalate exponentially and it was going to get bad. And it was not fantasy they were looking at. It was reality. And experience.
Whatever your background is, if you're legit and you understand the reality of violence, because we're martial artists, we're going to always come back to that at some point. If you understand that reality, you're going to respect it, because it is a dangerous thing, and it can go either way. And if you really understand it, you're going to understand that you can lose.
That you likely will lose.
Otherwise, it's what's that?
That you likely will lose.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to lose one way or another, but I think Ian really nailed that one with the fantasy world of we're not looking at fantasy, we're looking at reality. So whether you're cultivating for your own discipline or your own challenge of self, to challenge your spirit or to increase your athleticism as an individual, it doesn't make any difference. If you're just curious and you want to explore movement or thought, all of this is good and all of this is great, and that's stuff that we're going to work on, and that's stuff that we want to do. Ian, wrap us up, buddy.
Well, I want to say that when you are on YouTube, stay away from this is how you win a fight, stay away from use this trick, stay away from all that, and instead utilize the resources of YouTube to study the movement and to ask more questions, especially if you are involved with the school, and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? For us, we tend to understand a lot about violence, and we tend to try to avoid it. And so we focus on other benefits of the martial art, and we focus on making the best version of ourselves. Because honestly, man, like if you want to hurt somebody, what do you always say, Sifu Joel? Hit them with your car, shoot them.
Yeah,
Like,
I can run you over with my car. I can hit you with a baseball bat, shoot you with a gun. There's a lot of other ways to do it
Right.
today. The alternate benefits, the other benefits of training in martial arts or of tricking,
right.
Whether you're going to be performing or not, what are the benefits outside of actually using it for performance or for fighting or for whatever? There are a ton of people who play music just for their own benefit. There are a ton of people who dance for their own benefit, who do whatever movement or athletic endeavor for their own movement, and martial arts is no different. We want to improve ourselves as individuals, and that's the most important thing.
It's like you always say, you don't come to learn the thing, you come to learn from the thing, whatever that is for you.
Yep.
So with that, This is episode 1 of our podcast, and be sure to leave some comments, let us know, and subscribe to the channel, because we've got a lot of information to come out in the future.
Yay. Bye, everybody.